Well, here we are again, doing part 4 of 7, Introduction to Prof Bruce Mentoring and Coaching and Real Estate Investing. This one is a section that if you're not interested in the city of Ottawa, I understand that if you're from another city in Canada or the United States or around the world that you're watching this video, you can always skip to part 5. But Ottawa is a hidden gem, and I'm going to sort of give you a whirlwind tour. It is obviously the seat of Parliament for Canada, and it has a population in Ottawa of 1.2 million. And I think if you include Gatineau on the other side, it's about 1.3 or 1.4 million. Ottawa, Gatineau. Gatineau's in Quebec, and Ottawa is in Ontario, but they kind of work as one. Now, let's see how long it takes to get that to maybe 20 million people. So it's about 53 minutes to get to Toronto. It's about an hour to get to New York City, which has a population of 8.2 million. And then you can get to the Chicago CMA, Chicago metropolitan area, which has a population of almost 10 million in 2 hours. So you can see within an hour, there's probably, I don't know, including Montreal, there's probably about 16 or 17 million people. And then if you expand it to 2 hours, you are going to bring in Chicago, you're going to bring in all kinds of other cities and towns. So it's fairly well located. It was rated by the Reader's Digest as the best Canadian city to raise a family in, with a population of 200,000 or more. And part of the reason for that is it's very, very family friendly. Maybe for young people, millennials who are not yet married, I certainly see a lot of my students, they will go and live elsewhere. They'll go to Chicago, they'll go to Toronto, they'll go to LA, they'll go overseas to London or whatever. Some are in Berlin. But when they start having kids, they tend to come back. So Ottawa is the place that puts an elastic band on families or on people who leave. And when they have families, they tend to return, as I did. It has 300 kilometers of bike paths, so it's a big bike. Now, this one is unbelievable. This information came from one of the economic development organizations in Ottawa, so I should give them credit before I finish this video. But they say that Ottawa has more sunshine hours than Toronto, Kingston, Pembroke, Waterloo, Peterborough, or London, which I found kind of amazing. But anyway, over 2,000 hours of sun a year. We have 14 museums and 13 art galleries because we are the national capital of a G20 nation. So there you go. It's got lots of things to do. Lots of festivals. This has become a city of festivals, like many major cities around the world. They're putting a lot of effort and emphasis on festivals. I think this might be Blues Fest, which is one of the great festivals, music festivals around the world. Second highest quality of living of any large city in North America, and 14th in the world, according to the Mercer report. And, certainly for 6 months of the year, it's paradise. The rest of the time, it's hard sledding. Okay, so most sustainable city in Canada. And one of the things I found interesting about this particular scorecard was, if you notice up here, it talks not only about environmental quality, which is very high, but also your economic security and employment opportunities. Because in my view, in my experience, nothing is sustainable unless it's also economically sustainable, and certainly that's been brought into this measure. So having strong employment generators in Ottawa, government employment, health, universities, colleges, real estate, I'm missing a couple, obviously tourism, is very, very, very important. It's also incredibly inexpensive. I talked earlier in this video series about how you can buy a home for 350,000 Canadian dollars, i.e. pesos, 15 minutes from the parliamentary precinct. You cannot do that in Washington, Moscow, Beijing, London, Paris, Rome. I mean, forget it. It's very inexpensive. And I'm not sure why this is, but Ottawa had a significant growth of millionaires. I think it's the highest in Canada. Yeah, so lots of millionaires living in Ottawa, lots of tech here as well. I forgot, it's an economic generator. Like, nobody really knows the exact number, but there's between 42,000 and 72,000, depending on how you count it, IT workers in Ottawa. It's the most educated workforce in Canada. And let's see what we got here. I think it has more PhDs than anyone else. Yeah, 61% of workers have a post-secondary degree in Ottawa. That's pretty high. And my goodness, almost 129,000 have graduate level degrees. 75,000 plus at knowledge-based companies. Again, this number, I see numbers between 42,000 and 75 or 80,000. So it's in that range. Lots of IT workers, lots of knowledge workers, lots of scientists and engineers. We're second out of 316 North American cities, which is pretty much all the cities there are in North America, in terms of concentration of scientists and engineers. And for a lot of tech companies, you know, they can hire a really good quality engineer in Ottawa, you know, whether you're Apple or you're Google or you're Facebook or, you know, any of the other tech companies that are local to Canada, you can hire a really good engineer for anywhere from 100,000 to 150,000 Canadian dollars, and that person is probably going to stay longer with you and cost you considerably less than in the United States. Lots of mega projects happening in Ottawa too. These are just some that I picked out. The most important, I thought, was probably what Windmill Developments is doing with the islands downtown, which is now called Zibi. And then you've got LeBreton Flats, which is the National Capital Commission. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. You've got a big development going on potentially at Tunney's Pasture, Lincoln Fields, Westgate Shopping Center, not shown here. Some Booth Street properties. You've got Greystone Village here, Arts Court, where the Firestone Gallery is being completely rebuilt. Waterridge Village is going to be the redevelopment of the former air base in the east end of Ottawa. So a lot of exciting large-scale developments are happening in Ottawa. Probably the most important new change in the area is the addition of light rail. You probably can't have a G8 or G20 capital city that really works properly without light rail. You know, people just will executives, students, elders, everybody will get on light rail. You're protected mostly from the weather, which in places like Ottawa or Stockholm, where I taught a few years ago, you know, you're protected from the weather, mostly protected from the weather, and it's just a better way of getting around, at least experientially, than taking a bus. So this is a map of Ottawa. Eventually, the light rail will go fairly far to the west, fairly far to the east, fairly far to the south. And, you know, when I was teaching, as I said, in Stockholm, you would never think of driving. You just, if there's any way to get from A to B using their amazing light rail, that's what you would do. So some of the projects that I talked about earlier, this is what they're doing. This is a fabulous project by Windmill and Jonathan Westeindy. He's doing an incredible redevelopment of this area here on the Quebec side, this area here on the Ontario side, and it's right in the heart of Ottawa. It's called Zibi, and I think it's the only community which will be trilingual. It will be English and French, which are the official languages of Canada, but it will also be in Algonquin because these are the ancestral lands of the Algonquin. Here's the major museum. This would be the War Museum, which was built on LeBreton Flats. And then these lands here are going to be used for something else, which I'll turn to in a minute. So you'll see that they're repurposing some of the existing buildings. These are old industrial buildings, kind of like the Distillery District in Toronto, if you're familiar with that. So they'll reuse some of the existing buildings for shops, offices, you know, whatever, art studios. But there'll be lots of new buildings, condos, townhouses, you name it. This is, I put Waterside, but I think it's actually called Waterridge Village. So this is the redevelopment of the Rockcliffe Air Base. And then this is what I think is going to happen at the NCC's LeBreton Flats. The NCC stands for the National Capital Commission, which is a major regulatory body in Ottawa. And they're going to redevelop LeBreton Flats, which is a very important site in downtown Ottawa, for a new community called Rendezvous LeBreton, and it will be the new home of the Ottawa Senators. So the one that I built, the Canadian Tire Center, will be repurposed in Canada in the west end of Ottawa for something else, maybe, I don't know, an aquarium, or maybe something more prosaic like 2 or 3 superstores. If you know Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, it was repurposed for a Loblaw superstore, and also for used by Ryerson University for the Mattamy Athletic Center. So Canadian Tire Centre in Canada, which is a suburban arena, can be repurposed, and the Sens might move downtown. This is a fantastic plan done by Matt Rossetti from Detroit. It was his dad, Gino Rossetti, who did the original design of Canadian Tire Centre, called the Palladium back then. And his son, Matt Rossetti, worked with Cyril Leader and the Ottawa Senators to develop this plan. This is a world-class plan. It will transform Ottawa in many ways. You can sort of see here, that's going to be the new arena, and then lots of density around it. This is just another view of it, and I think the most important part of their plan, in a way, was the fact they're going to bury light rail. So you can see on the lower left here, this is light rail, and by doing that, they didn't allow the site to be divided by, trains whizzing by at whatever 100 kilometers an hour. They buried it, and I think that was an important way of knitting the whole community together. It's just another shot of it, I guess a nighttime shot, and you'll notice here that people are walking by. A lot of people who live in Ottawa for decades don't know that we have an aqueduct. So one of the features that Matt Rossetti, Cyril Leader, and their team brought out in this design was exploiting the beauty of that aqueduct, which is really fantastic. There's another shot of it here. And the project, in a way, kind of reminds me of the largest real estate project, I think, in the United States ever, which is the Hudson Yards redevelopment in New York City. And what they're doing is, over these train yards, is they're building an enormous platform, which I think you see in the next slide. Yeah, here it is, which creates real estate above a set of train yards, and it's enormous. I don't even know what the budget is, but I think it's in the tens of billions of dollars. So knitting together cities with these kinds of infill projects, and creating land, so to speak, by going up vertically over the train yards is really important. Yeah, okay, why is this slide here? Well, this is the actual national motto of Canada, peace, order, and good government. Right? That's the actual motto of Canada, peace, order, and good government. And certainly when I was a young man, I thought, oh my gosh, how boring that is, especially compared to this, right? Our American sisters and brothers, their national motto is pursuit of happiness. And certainly as a 20-year-old, I thought, wow, that is cool, right? But in actual fact, if you go back to this slide and you think about it, and certainly as I got older, you cannot create any value, real estate, business, family, if you don't have peace and order and good. If your government is dishonest, if you have kleptomaniacs running your government, and they come to you after you've built a great real estate portfolio or a great business, and they say, you have a great business here, a great portfolio, guess what? Now we now own it. Well, those are called extractive economies. They don't work, right? They fail. So if you don't have peace, order, and good government, you really aren't going to have much of an economy. So with all due respect to our American cousins, I actually think Canada got it right. Maybe I didn't think so a long time ago. This is a picture of Mike Ilitch and Mrs. Ilitch back, I guess, when they won the Stanley Cup, which is NHL hockey's highest trophy. And when I was trying to get a team for Ottawa, I got to know Mike a little bit, and I really liked him, and I know he was very well respected. He's passed away now fairly recently, and his teams have a patch on their uniforms which says Mr. I. He was loved by his employees, by his management, and obviously by the players themselves. God rest his soul. But anyway, he asked me when I visited him at Joe Louis Arena, he asked me, so Bruce, what's the murder rate like in Ottawa? And I said, I don't know, Mike, 10, maybe 12 people. He said, oh, a day? No, Mike, that would be a year. Oh, he says, we get that a day here. And I don't mean to pick on Detroit, but this is a picture of Detroit, certainly as it's looked for, a few decades now. And, if you don't have peace, order, and good government, it's very hard to build any kind of real estate value, or, as I said, build a family, create a good environment for your children. This is just a picture of Detroit. This is a picture of Ottawa. This is the byward market, and when Mr. Obama was president, he visited this part of our town, and I think we were pretty excited about that. So, you know, where are you going to buy? People, I have people I coach, they say, look, I could buy, 6, 8, 10 homes in Detroit for $100 each. I said, yeah, but can you renovate them? Sure. Can you tenant them? Maybe. Can you collect rents? Possibly, maybe not. Can you buy something for can you buy a house in Ottawa for $100? Absolutely not. It's going to be $350,000 or $400,000. But you're going to get a cap rate of 5.5, 6, 7, and with some animations, maybe even 8 or 9. Or if you're like Burning Rock, maybe as much as 13%. So it's no good telling me you've got your costs under control if there are no revenues or very limited revenues. All right. So Ottawa is the best city in Canada and tops amongst G20 capitals for real estate investing, in my opinion. And we're going to take a break now, and we're going to come back with part 5, where to buy.